Hi everyone, today we're going to make this wonderful dish, Bakonyi pork chop. Let me tell you the ingredients. 1 large tub of sour cream, which is about 3 to 4 deciliters. Flour, which we'll need for thickening. Here you see 7 to 8 small tomatoes, or you can use 2 to 3 larger ones. Garlic, paprika, 2 onions, 100 to 150 grams of bacon, good quality pasta, though you can also make it with rice or dumplings. This is half a kilo of mushrooms, salt, pepper, and as for the meat, I'm going to use pork leg, but you can also use pork loin or whichever cut of pork you prefer. Even pork shoulder works. It really doesn't matter which part you use. So let's get started. I'll take the 2 onions and the garlic and start peeling and chopping them up in my indispensable food processor as always. Honestly, I don't think I could do it any other way. I only ever chop onions with this. It can cut them really finely, which makes the dish much juicier and thicker. And honestly, I still really enjoy pulling this cord. Just look at how finely it chops the onion. I'm sure I couldn't chop it this finely by hand. Okay, I'm done with the garlic too, so now it's time for the tomatoes. You don't need to cut them as finely because they'll cook down anyway. But it's good to chop the onion finely because then you won't have to overblend it at the end. Then the dish. Now comes lots of mushrooms. The more mushrooms I add, the better the flavor will be. I peel them and then slice them. That's all I need to do with them. And now a little behind the scenes surprise video. This is my cat. Her name is Munyi, and believe it or not, she's the world's biggest fan of mushrooms. Watch, as soon as I started peeling the mushrooms, she showed up, and I usually give her the mushroom peels. This way, nothing goes to waste, and as you can see, she actually eats it. My beautiful little kitty, enjoy your meal. Now, let's continue cooking. I'll start chopping up the 2 peppers, and basically, I'll chop up all the ingredients. I'll also put the 3 tablespoons of flour into a separate bowl. This will be the base for our thickener, which I'll mix with the sour cream later, and that's what will give this Bakonyi dish its delicious, creamy flavor. Pork chops. So let me show you all the ingredients together. You can see the onion, garlic, tomato, mushrooms, flour, bacon, and the chopped peppers. Now let's start cooking. I take the bacon and put it in a well-heated pot to start frying it so the fat renders out. And meanwhile, I begin pounding the meat. It doesn't have to be super thin, but it's good if it gets a bit thinner and very quickly. Thank you very much. I want to express my profound and heartfelt gratitude for everything. Your kindness and support mean the world to me, and I'm truly overwhelmed by your generosity. I am incredibly appreciative of your efforts and the time you've dedicated. This gesture has made a significant positive impact, and I will always remember your thoughtfulness. My sincerest thanks for your invaluable contribution and unwavering assistance. It is deeply appreciated. So now into this hot bacon fat, I put the meat and fry each side for 1 to 3 minutes. If you don't make it with bacon, you can use oil instead, but the dish won't have the same flavor. But of course, you can also prepare this dish with oil. You see, I just turn it over in the fat. It doesn't need to be fully cooked through because the meat will cook later. And then I set it aside. And it's very important that the juices that come out of it now in the other pot, don't pour those out. Later, we'll add them back in just the same to the stew. Once you've finished browning all the meat, you need to start sauteing the onions. Sorry, the mushrooms in this delicious, meaty, bacon-flavored fat. You need to add pepper to the mushrooms. I added a teaspoon of pepper. It might look like I put in 2, but I only used this spoon for the 4th time. Pepper and mushrooms are really, really good friends. I salted it, and soon it will start to release its juices. It's liquid, the mushrooms. When you reach about this consistency, you need to take the mushrooms out and set them aside in a separate dish so they don't overcook, since mushrooms cook very quickly. You see, there's a really nice sauce left at the bottom, and into this I throw the onions and start to saute them. And in the meantime, many of you have asked me, either by email or in the comments, how I keep my kitchen tidy, because cooking is great, but it's really a messy business. That's just how it is. But of course, when I'm cooking alone, I don't prepare everything in advance. Instead, while I'm sauteing the onions, I chop the meat, etc. So it's much faster, and I always have time to start tidying up as I go. For example, just now I showed you that while the food was simmering, I unloaded the dishwasher and started putting the dirty things in it. All right, so now I add the garlic to the onions, stir it in, and then add the tomatoes as well, which, as you know, I chop them up beforehand and I let them saute together for just a little bit. Now comes the paprika. Imagine I have a kind of paprika that's not really red, so I'm adding more than usual, even though 2 tablespoons would normally be enough. My paprika isn't red, so I'm not going to throw it out because it tastes perfectly fine, but it makes the food turn orange instead of red. I don't know, maybe I've had it for a long time, but it's definitely not red. If you have nice red paprika at home, then 1.5 tablespoons is enough. And you'll see this because it can really affect the flavor. So now I've poured in about 1.5 to 2 deciliters of water, just enough to cover it. You can see the consistency. This is how it should look. I added another deciliter of water. I've prepared another 4 deciliters, but this really depends on how much liquid your tomatoes and mushrooms release and everything else. You see, here is that delicious meat juice that came out of the meat while cooking. Sorry, I'm doing this one-handed because I have the camera in my other hand, so I'm a bit clumsy right now. And I poured the meat into this juice. As you can see, I added just enough water earlier to cover the meat pieces. I'm salting it, putting the lid on and starting to cook it. It definitely needs at least an hour. Meanwhile, I've put water on to boil for the pasta and I added some salt as well. Basically, when you put the lid on like this, that's a good time to start heating the water for the pasta too. My stove heats up pretty slowly, especially if I'm going to heat a large amount of water. So here are my 3 tablespoons of flour, and with about 3 to 4 deciliters of water, I start mixing it until it's lump-free. This is very important so that our sauce turns out nice, and I add some of the dish's juice to it. You don't need to. I usually add about 1 or 2 generous ladles of it, but honestly, it truly doesn't significantly matter how much you ultimately add. Even just a mere couple of tablespoons is perfectly fine, or if you decide to add a bit more, that's also perfectly good because it all eventually goes right back into the main dish anyway. I usually add a sufficient amount so that the entire mixture is relatively easy and smooth to stir, and as soon as I've thoroughly mixed it until it's completely lump-free, it then goes right back into the dish. You see, I pour it in quite quickly like this, and there's absolutely nothing left behind. I brought the camera closer so you can see just how creamy this sauce is. I think it pretty much gives you an idea of what kind of flavor to expect. I take the mushrooms and pour them back into the dish. There will be some leftover sauce from this as well. Don't throw that out either. It will do wonders for the dish. Then I let everything simmer together for another 5 minutes and basically it's done. While this is still boiling, I'll start cleaning up the kitchen so it will be nice and clean and I won't have to tidy up after cooking. Because yes, you're right, cooking can be really exhausting, and having to clean up the mess afterwards is why many people don't like to cook. But I always do the cleaning as I go. By now I have enough experience to know exactly how much time I have after each step, and it feels really good to turn off the stove knowing the kitchen is tidy. You know, to be honest, this is the kind of dish where when you start frying the meat at the beginning, it will splatter. The fat and oil will splatter, so you'll definitely need to wipe down the counter here, just like I did. Of course, I keep an eye on the food to make sure it doesn't burn or anything, but it's done now. I'll be able to drain the pasta soon, and then you'll see that I can actually leave behind a clean kitchen. It really just comes down to practice, so keep doing it, and you'll see that there will be time between the different steps to tidy up. For me, it's always important that here's a good tip. I always start cooking with an empty dishwasher. As you can see, the dishwasher was already running. And here is the finished masterpiece. You'll find the recipe in both English and Hungarian, just like at the end of all my videos. I hope you enjoyed this dish. Give it a try, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back soon with the next video. Thank you so much for loving the channel and watching all the content. Bye, and see you in the next video.